My name is Sequoia Johnson. I'm the older adult advocate at Vaughan Public Libraries. I'll put my email in the chat in a moment so that if anybody wants to reach out, they can. If you have any ideas, suggestions, anything you want to discuss, please feel free. So now I'm going to introduce our speaker for tonight. Cynthia Bredner is a gerontologist, teacher, author, grief specialist, and bereavement counselor. A soul care worker who offers specialized care in spiritually integrated therapies. She works as an LTC chaplain, assisting with end-of-life care for client and family. She is the mother part of the, maybe you can help me, how do I pronounce this? Is it Dancing Adventures Duo? And she practices fitness, health, and wellness. And we're very happy to welcome her tonight. And I'll hand you over now to Cynthia. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's Danson. It's Danson. Yeah, it's Danson because it's my daughter's name is Danielle and my name is Cynthia. So we kind of threw it together. My daughter thought that was fun that we were dancing our way into fitness and fun and hiking. So I hope I cannot see anybody right now because my screen is full with my PowerPoint. I can see Sequoia. And so I'm very excited to be here. And I want to thank you all for coming to this workshop. It's very exciting for Sequoia and I to have so many people sign up and be interested in this topic. So I hope that I bring you some fun and some excitement around this topic. I hope I bring you some learning and I just welcome comments. So I just want to touch on a couple of little housekeeping items. I want you all to make sure you have your chat feature available to you because I'm going to be asking a couple of questions. And so I want you to be able to write in the chat so Sequoia and I can see what your answers are as we're moving through this. I am also quite happy to be interrupted. So if you have a question as I'm talking and you think, I don't understand that, or I need a little more information about that, or, oh my goodness, I don't want to forget that, you can put in the chat that you wanted to ask something and we will ask you then to unmute and you can ask me. So I'm happy to be interrupted. I have no trouble with that at all. So with that in mind, we'll move forward with our topic tonight because I think many people are here. I'm going to probably talk till about 7:45 and I want it to be interactive. So as I say, if you have comments or questions, throw them in the chat and we can talk about them. So Sequoia did give my background. She gave a little bio of me, and that is who I am. I do lots of work. My primary work is in what's called spiritual care. So I care for the spirit of aging adults. I work in long-term care, as she said, and so I get so much experience with the aging adults, those who are 80, 90, 100 years old. And I hear so many, regrets and things that they say. So I just want to share that with you, that as I am in what I call the third trimester of my life, because I'm over 60, I'm now in the last, the last third of my life because I'm fully anticipating to live to be 100. And I just want to move forward in that. And so that's what I'm doing. So I'm practicing aging well, and I'm having fun with that. So I'll share a little more about me as we go along. And as I say, if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So the first thing we're going to talk about is why are we here? So if you want to open your chat and in a few words, can you tell me why you chose to register for this workshop tonight? And if you just want to say it was something to do on a Monday, that's okay too. So I want you to just tell me what about the workshop interested you. So I'm going to give you a moment to answer that question for me. I know we have about, let's see here, we have 21 people here. Oh, okay. I want to understand the aging process, some insight to aging well and independence. Interested in learning how to age well. Yep. Seems to be a lot of negatives associated with aging. Yep. To set a path, info on aging and living well. Wonderful. Oh my gosh, those are all great reasons. Aging is not just for myself, but for my aging parents. Exactly. How to age well. Yep. And we all want that. Looking for tips on aging well. And you found the topic interesting. Thank you, Pauline. I appreciate that, because that's, you know, I was saying that to Sequoia. I'm interested in aging well and prepare a plan. Yeah. And how to maintain functionally while aging. Love it. Love it, love it. Bust the myths. Camilla, I like that. Bust the myths. Yes, you are right. Because I see that so much in the work that I do with the aging adults. I will sit with someone who they'll go to get up out of a chair and they'll go, oh, my back is so bad, but it's just because I'm older. And it's like, 50 things run through my head. It's like, no, it's not because you're older. It's because you're sitting in a chair too long. You need to get up and move around a bit. Let's do some chair exercises. Like, there's lots of things that people can do. So we're busting the myths. Good one. In my 60s too, and my life seems unproductive right now. Interesting, Anna Marie. I read the description of the course and was very interested. The past and the future don't exist. Whoa, you picked up on that, eh? Thank you. Rajith, I think I got that right. I've been reliving the past events and always keep going back instead of living in the present. It is hard. Yes, we live a lot in our past, for sure. Well, that's wonderful. If anyone else has any more comments, just throw them up there. I'm happy to read them. So that's great. Okay. So what I had asked you when I put out the description, I said, do you feel confused when it comes to the subject of aging well? What does it mean to age well, right? I mean, we all want to know about that. Are you struggling with what you should pay attention to first? I mean, if any of you watch any sort of TV programs or anything that's on the radio, you hear all kinds of advertisements about the right diet, the right exercise place, the right thing to do, what is right to eat, eh? We all have those questions about what do we pay attention to? Oh my goodness. So then I want to ask, can you see yourself aging well and with purpose? I think that's the first thing we need to talk about here is how you view your life. I know someone said that they felt a little unproductive right now. Anna Maria, she said, I feel a little unproductive. So let's talk about how you see yourself. So we're going to dive into a few of these things. Now, we're going to just touch the tip of the iceberg tonight. There's going to be so much opportunity for us to grow this. I know Sequoia was talking about how that they want to offer more programs and more things happening. So make notes tonight on things that I talk about that you go, I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to learn a little bit about that. And then tell them to Sequoia and we'll see if we can build some programs around what you're interested in. So how many of you would like a simple way to get started? There we are. Let's find a simple way to get started on the journey of aging well with purpose. So the number one simple way to get started is you're here. You're here tonight. You're here with me. You're here with Sequoia. And that's the simple way to get started. You just get started. I remember years ago, I was watching a video on religious things, and it was a Jewish rabbi. And the Jewish rabbi said, I always get asked, how do I be a good Jew? Because there's so many things to remember and there's so many rules and laws. And she said, so I just tell them, pick one and start. And I've remembered that all these years because it's many years ago I heard that. So today is the simple way is you're here and you're starting and you're going to begin today. So let's get started. So let's talk first about the domains of health. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar or in a medical, if you're in the medical field, you may have heard recently all about what they talk about the domains of health. So I want to sort of debunk that a little bit tonight and give you a little bit of a feeling around the domains of health. And I want to ask you, what do you think it feels like to be whole? And we must integrate and nourish the whole of our health. So in order to be whole, we must integrate it all. And this is one of the things that I notice so much over the last 100 years. Our medical industry, our medical practices have taken off in a way that, they thought they would just get a pill for anything. They thought if they could just plug and play the organs in our body, that our medical teams, our doctors, our nurses would be able to just say, oh, you have heart trouble? Let's take this heart out, we'll put another heart in and you'll be fine. Well, they've come to discover now that that's not true. Our physical body is only one piece of our health. It's only one part of who we are. We are complex. We have all kinds of things going on in our lives that we need to pay attention to be able to be looking at the whole self. So we have to nourish the whole of our health. I keep having to move my chat window if you wonder what I'm doing. So let's talk about the 4 domains. Let's just touch on these right here and now. Now, the 4 domains. So there's the physical, there's the mental, there's the emotional, and there's the spiritual. Those are the 4 domains of health. I have this little holistic model here, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's still a great holistic model. I've had it for years. I've had this little card now for probably 12 years because I went to university midlife. And when I went to university and started taking my gerontology degree, this was what we based everything on, the holistic model of the 4 domains. But they've added a couple of them, particularly in the long-term care and retirement, and that's social and environmental. So those are also domains of health that they take into account. But for tonight's purposes, we're just going to talk about these 4. So what does it mean to have many parts of the whole self? What does that mean? Like we're not segregated, and we can't plug and play. We're not just pieces of a puzzle where one piece you can kind of make a new piece and put it in and just take up the space. We are integrated. Everything in our body, in our lives, in our health is integrated. So let's look at the first domain, physical. So with the physical domain, it talks about the body, it talks about our fitness level and movement, talks about cardio, which is the heart and the lungs and the muscles and the bones, the biology of our lives, right? So when we go out in the world, how many of you look at someone in your world and you say to yourself, wow, they're not looking very well? So you're assessing them on the physical domain. When you look at them, the physical domain is telling you that they are not well, but it's only one aspect. But our body is the physical, it's the physical part. It's the biology of our lives. So when we look at these areas of physical, what I want you to pay attention to, and my personal goal has always been to be as healthy and as strong as I can be. So when we talk about the physical domain of health, how you can age well in the physical domain is to make sure you take care of your body. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to go to the gym and pump iron, and you're going to make sure that you run a marathon next year. It's not about that. It's about paying attention to your body and all the parts of it and giving it fresh air and exercise to the level that you're able to do. It's making sure that you are eating well and it's hydrating it. It's watching over the medications that you take and being in communication with your doctor to know that whatever medications you're taking, that they're not counteracting, talking to your, what's the word I want? The guy at the drugstore who gives out the drugs, you know who I mean. Make sure with them that they can tell you whether drugs are going to counteract with each other. Paying attention to your body is aging well. I know the last few days I've had a really stiff neck for some reason, and I don't know why, and it's causing me a headache. And I think it's because I'm knitting too much. So I'm sitting looking down all the time and I'm knitting. I love to knit. So I have to pay attention that my neck is telling me, get my head up, stretch it every once in a while. I got to get up from my chair and walk around and go and move and not sit in the chair. That's paying attention. When you pay attention, you can age well. So let's look at the second domain, the mental domain. So this part of us is our thoughts, our ideas, our practices, our processes, our habits, and our programming. So let's look at that. So you've got the biological, physical self that you're now going to pay attention to in order to age well. You're going to listen to it and you're going to hear it. The next step in that is your mental. So I used the example that you were going to go, you see your friend and you think, wow, they're not looking very well. So when you say they're not looking very well, do you automatically assume that they have heart trouble? Or do you automatically assume that, that they're constipated? Or do you automatically assume that their blood pressure is high? Well, you could, but you can also look at it and think, oh my goodness, I wonder if they're sad or they're grieving or something is going on inside of them in their mental health that is creating the biology to show this dis-ease, this dis-ease, D-I-S/E-A-S-E, dis-ease. And that comes from our thoughts and our ideas and our practices, our processes, our habits, and our programming. And we think of computers. Computers are programmed, right? Well, so are we. So in order to age well, you need to reassess your programming. Let's use an example. If you have a computer from 1986, when they were 386s and 486s, I don't know if any of you here remember those, but if you do, could you use the software of a 386 or a 486 on a computer today? Not likely. So in order to age well, you have to look at your habits and your programming and look at yourself and say, what was programmed into me when I was 5, 10, or 11, or 12, or 22, that today when I'm 42, 52, or 92 doesn't work anymore? We have a huge amount of that in our society. We're looking at the fact that we are now a pluralistic, changing society. So we have to reprogram ourselves to remind ourselves to be kind and generous and caring for all people, not just people that look like us. And because we're changing society. How do we do that? So we have to look at our mental self, our mental domain of health, and think, are my thoughts pure? Are my thoughts healthy? What ideas do I have that are not conducive with a healthy, strong life? And how can I change some practices or some processes or my programming or my habits in order to live better today, to alleviate stress and to take away the issues? Because when we want to control things based on old programming or old ideas or old habits, it creates stress. And we don't age well when we're living in a stressful environment or a stressful time in our mental health. And the model of the world. I've done a lot of work in the last 3 to 5 years around the model of the world. And this is so important because it's how you look at life out and about. So when you picture yourself in your apartment, in your home, in your room, whatever, and you look out the window of your place, you look out and you see what's on the street, you see the houses, that's a model of the world that you see from that window. As long as you live there in that spot and look out that window, that's all you will see. And if you believe that that's all there is to the world, you're going to have a pretty small space. So now if you walk around your house and go to all the different windows and look out the different windows and see that every direction you look, Every window you look out of is a different view. Then you're going to begin your mental health journey, and you're going to age better because you're going to remember that your model of the world is always conducive to the window you're looking out of. And sometimes we have to reprogram our habits and reprogram ourselves in order to change our model of the world. So another domain, and do you notice I'm not saying our first domain, second domain, third, or fourth, because these are all equal. They're just another one. So another domain is emotional. Now, the emotional domain includes your feelings and your sensations and your motion of our thoughts, the fallout to our mental. So we have the emotional is triggered quite often by our mental domain. We have the past, the present, and the future, guilt and anxiety. We have the existence in the world, how we are in the world comes much out of our domain, which is the emotional domain. So when we look at all of these bullet points, I want you to think about, are you aging well and looking at your existence in the world? Do you give yourself credit? Do you pat yourself on the back? Do you look in the mirror in the morning and be thankful for who you are and that you're strong and that you have feelings and sensations and you have a care in the world? You have lots of things going on. And how do you react to the feelings inside of your head, the emotions, that programming, that habits? How are you aging well in your emotions, your feelings, and your sensations? Right here is where I'll stop and talk about that comment about that we cannot suffer the past or the future because they don't exist. What exists is our memories and our anticipation. So I want everyone right now to just sit quiet in your chair, whatever you are, and I want you to put your fingers like this. And I want you to hold your hands together like this. And I can't see if you're doing it or not, so I'm just going to carry on, because if you're doing it, great. I want you to just touch your fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I want you to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wonderful. Now I want you to think about this. Stop and think about this. Were you worried about anything while you were counting your fingers? Or were you concentrating on counting and on your fingers? Were you anticipating anything that's going to happen later tonight or tomorrow while you were counting your fingers? No, you weren't. You were counting your fingers. You were in the present moment. And that's what is meant when it is said that the past, you cannot suffer the past or the future because they don't exist, because it's the memories that we are suffering. We think back to something that happened last week, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. We suffer the guilt, or we suffer the regret, or we suffer our pain. And we also experience joy, and we have delight, and we have wonder, because we can think about the past and we can bring it into the present moment. We cannot suffer the future because it's not happened yet. So we have anxiety over the fact that we're anticipating something, but it hasn't happened. So how can it cause us suffering if it hasn't happened? It's our thoughts that are suffering, and our anxieties are raised because of what we believe the future is going to be. So whenever you're feeling anxious or feeling guilt, I want you to do the finger exercise and just bring yourself into the present moment and have a couple of deep breaths. And that way, then you will bring yourself back to know that you can let go of those thoughts and feelings of past and future. Because how we exist in the world depends on where we live. If we have the majority of our thoughts in the past, or we're worried about the future, then our day-to-day gets lost. So our emotional self is quite often connected very closely to our mental self. I'm going to stop here for 1 second. I want to ask if anyone has questions or comments that they might like to make. Any thoughts? I'm just going to take a couple of deep breaths. And I'm just going to be here in the moment with you. And see if there's anything anyone wants to ask. Put it in the chat. Take a moment. Just going to turn up my music. Just have a moment. Be in the present. Deep breath. How does one deal with illness, Pauline? Can you give me a little bit, just extrapolate a little more? Rajitha, thank you. Just 1 second. I'm just going to ask Pauline, are you meaning dealing with the diagnosis of an illness or dealing with chronic illness? So Pauline, if you can just give just a little more information. How can you rearrange your thoughts so that you're not thinking of the future or the past? You know what? It sounds really flippant and it sounds really simple, but we just have to make a choice. And I know that that seems too easy. And that's where talking with a trusted person who can help you to detangle those thoughts of past and future and the anxieties around them can help. I work a lot with grief and loss and people who are struggling through grief and loss, which is the majority of our life's challenges are stemming out of grief and loss. And so I work with them, and it's a matter of really choosing to move forward in our lives and choosing to honor that which you're thinking about. However, letting it go and realizing that it is something that we can let go into our past and not affect our future. So Raditha, I'm not sure if that helps. If it does a little bit, feel free to ask more questions about that. And if I can help you with that, I will. Good, thank you. That's great. Chronic illness, cancer. Yeah, you see, the biological part of our body does deal us some really challenging times, doesn't it? The other thing that we want to talk about here is the difference between healing versus cure. And things like that, because the biological body is prone to illness and it is prone to getting sick. And our culture today is such that we have a very poor diet and poor ways of handling stress. And so the body takes a beating. So when you ask how you can handle illness, how does one deal with illness? It's again, sort of the same answer. A change happened when I told myself that I do not have to believe my thoughts. Exactly. Yeah, that's great, Darlene. That's a good comment. people will use movies, TV, sports, social media, books, Take a Walk to not think of the future or the past. And some will say they're distractions. And that's the thing, they can be considered distractions. However, sometimes it's a way of stepping outside of the pain until you're able to work with the pain, because we have to do it in degrees. I work with a woman right now who a year ago, her daughter died suddenly at 24 years old. And that woman has spent 12 months just even coming to terms with the fact that her daughter has died. And she's had to do it in degrees because her cognitive self, the 5% of her brain can't handle the pain. And so the unconscious mind is protecting her and giving it to her in bits and pieces. So she's had to have lots of distractions to allow herself time to cope with the death of her daughter in degrees. So getting back to illness, I believe that we need to understand that we live, we're born, we live, and we die. And often the diagnosis of an illness or a disease is somehow robbing us of what we consider to be a full life or a long life, when we really have no idea how long our lives are supposed to be. It's kind of like someone says, oh, I caught a fish this big. When they don't put their hand up, you don't know how long. It's only because we expect we are to live long lives that when it's cut short, we somehow feel cheated. So an illness, whether it's chronic or acute, can often be a bit of a challenge to reconcile that part of us. And so it's a matter of talking to ourselves and to our loved ones about what does it mean to be ill? What does it mean that if our life is cut a little bit short? Did the life we have, was it fulfilling? Was it good? Was it strong? Was it loving? Did it leave a legacy? All of these questions to leave a good fullness behind. Because as we get into the spiritual domain, we can talk a little more about this understanding of meaning and purpose in our lives. And it's usually a question of why is this happening when we hear horrible things on our earth happening, like whether it be a car accident, someone dying, a child being somehow hurt, people getting ill. It's always like we can't believe it because for some reason we believe we're going to live untouched. And that's just not the way it is. So it's our understanding of seeing our lives as they are, which is precarious and short. In the span of 13 billion years of our Earth's existence, our lives on this planet is very, very short. And so when we look at it in perspective, we will realize that we are here as a blink in the eye of creation and of the whole thing. So how do we make it most meaningful? So I'm not sure if that helps. I'm not sure if that makes sense to people. I hope so. So let's look at another domain, which is the spiritual domain. This is my favorite. I love this domain. In my world, the spiritual domain is the umbrella that encompasses all the other domains. Because in my faith story, my belief story, I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And sometimes we get that mixed up. So I want you to know just that my bias is that I love the spiritual side of people, and I'll tell you some stories about that. But let's just talk about the spiritual domain. Spiritual domain, it's about purpose and meaning, and it's about self-worth and value to the greater good. It's about religion. It's people choosing a religion that expresses the spiritual side of them. And that's where we've had it mixed up for quite some time. We think religion is spiritual, but it's not. Spiritual is our religion. We practice our religion to touch our spiritual selves and to live in like-minded community, to build tribe and to build connection and to build family. So I want to talk a little bit about spiritual self. I had a mentor one time that his conversation started out by saying, behind every set of eyes is a soul at work. And when we remember that the body is the biological section of our lives, and all the emotional and the mental and the spiritual stuff happens inside of that. And we can't often reconcile that. So to age well with purpose, we must look at what is our spiritual self? Who are we? What gives me purpose and meaning? What is so important to me that it's sacred? And we are flippant about this. At times I hear some sounds in the background, but it looks like the attendee's all muted. I'm sorry. Yes, there is. Thank you. Is that better? Thank you, Catherine. I didn't realize you could hear it so much. So I hope that's better. Perfect. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for speaking up. I love it. So I was in the long-term care today, and I follow my heart so much. I follow just a feeling of what I'm to do. And it's taken me years to craft this. It didn't happen overnight. It's a massive amount of trust. Just as full disclosure, also, I'm 5 years sober in January. I drowned myself in wine for years and years and years. I struggled a lot with my personal self-worth and who I am and what I was supposed to be doing. And spiritually, I had no purpose or meaning. And it wasn't until I really began to look at this so deeply and was able to let go of alcohol in my life and be able to trust in the spiritual connection. So today I was in the long-term care and I was on the 3rd floor, and I was doing some sing-along, and I was visiting with people, and I just started to walk, and I walked out down the hall, and as I got to the end of the hall, I thought, I'm going to go down the stairs. And so I went out and I went down the stairs. Oh, thank you, Rajita. I went down the stairs, and I didn't know why I was going down the stairs. I just went down the stairs. So I'm down the stairs to the 1st floor, and I went through the door, and I went out the door, started walking down the hall. And as I was walking down the hall, there was a man on a telephone. Now I had a mask on, so I knew he was a visitor. He wasn't a resident, and he was pacing back and forth and pacing back and forth. And I just stopped because I thought, oh, this is the room of the new man. He's been here a couple of weeks. So I just stepped back and I just waited, and the man was on the phone and all this was happening. And all of a sudden the man came out and he said to me, you must work here because you're wearing a mask and you have a badge on. And I said, well, I am. I'm the spiritual care provider. So I just wanted to stop and say hello. I understand that. And I named the man. I said, I know he's new. And he said, yeah. And so we had a wonderful conversation I had with this young man, a 41-year-old man who had just put his dad, as he put it, I put my dad here into long-term care because his dementia has got such that it's not manageable at home. He needs 24-hour care. So the first thing I pointed out to this young man was, I said, you didn't put your dad anywhere. You are providing a safe place for him so that you can carry on living your life at the same time as you provide care for your dad. And his whole body showed that I spoke the truth to him. He needed someone to tell him that. He needed someone to say to him, it's okay that you have cared for your dad by bringing him to this place. He talked to me about his job. He talked to me, I was only with him maybe 20 minutes, but we had such a meaningful, purpose-filled conversation, and it was actively aging well for him and for me, and it's all tied in together. This whole workshop is all about our daily lives of how we function to make sure that we age well with purpose. And when I say with purpose, When I came down those stairs, I didn't know why I was walking down the stairs. I just was following instinct. I don't have voices in my head saying, oh, go here, go there, not very often, but I do have, feelings of, oh, I'm going to turn left here instead of right. I had a story from yesterday where I was sitting at a gas station. I went to pull out and there was a truck with a very large cattle trailer on it. And he was coming around the corner and my ego told me, floor it, get in front of that guy, get going, you want to get on the road. But a wee small voice just said, no, wait. So I heeded the wee small voice and I waited. And as I waited and he went zinging past me, he did about 130 in front of me all the way. He was gone and I was left in his dust. If I had have listened to my ego, my initial thought, I would have been tailgated by him because he wouldn't have been able to get past me. And he was in a hurry, I guess. But it was just a moment of listening to the duality of my initial instincts of just jumping on something or taking a moment and breathing and waiting. So I want to talk about the spiritual domain in that way. I want you to begin to age well by listening to yourself. Do you have a tape in your head that's going on and on and on with nonsense that just keeps giving you bad advice and you just keep replaying it? Jay, I have my father in the long-term care, I'm going to say home. I don't like to call them facilities. So I have my father in the long-term care home as well. I can't bring my kids to go and visit him. His condition got worse over the years. What do you suggest? My partner's seen his grandma in the long-term home and he was so traumatized. It is traumatizing to see our loved ones in that state with dementia or Alzheimer's because they're not who we grew up to love. And so if I can give any suggestion, it's to know that they are in their own world. They are living within their own head. And it's our past of knowing who they were that creates in us an anxiety or a painful grief that the person we're looking at is not the person we knew or loved. And that's a really important distinction because often we feel sorry for people who have dementia because, oh, they're in a home, they're locked up, they're whatever. They're not. They're living out their lives in a safe place that allows them to be free to roam and color and go to the same program day after day after day and not even remember they went to the one yesterday, so they can have joy every day with the same thing they saw yesterday and not know that they enjoyed it yesterday just as much as they enjoyed it today. So if I can suggest anything, I suggest to people that we need to stop looking at why we think they're not living their best life. And are we judging their lives on what we think they should be doing, as opposed to making the life they have now be the best it can be? So I'm not sure if that helps, Jay. I hope so. I'm always open to conversation around this. So as I move forward, because we're getting on to about 7:45, so spiritual is purpose, meaning, self-worth, and value to the greater good. Finding, if you want a religion, if you don't, finding your spiritual. Some people are religious about golf. Some people are religious about going to the car races. Some people are religious about watching Jeopardy every night at 7:30. So we want to make sure that we can be religious about something, but let's make sure it's filling our spirit and not draining us. Finding a connection to the tribe, to the family, to the community. Often we have family, but we don't connect with them. And then we go somewhere to a book club or a faith group, or we go somewhere and we find a tribe or family where we can be ourselves. That's what we're finding most now in our LGBT to 2S plus community, that they are finding tribe, they're finding like-minded people where they can be themselves and find purpose and meaning. So purposeful living overall, let's talk about this. So when we live holistically, what does that mean? It means making sure that we are looking at ourselves as a whole person and not dissecting ourselves into being our buttocks, or I don't like my boobs, or my feet are too big, or my bum is too big. That's not being holistic, because you're pitting yourself against yourself. You only have one bottom. You only have one set of feet. You only have one nose. So love it the way it is. Find your own inner beauty and find your spirituality, find your emotional health, find your mental health, and look for ways of paying attention to it. Interdependence of the parts. Doctors have found it. I don't know how many of you have seen Patch Adams with Robin Williams. Wonderful movie. If you have not seen it, I strongly recommend you go and find it somewhere online and watch it. Patch Adams. Patch Adams was a doctor, and he introduced, and Robin Williams played him. It's a true story. He brought humor into the hospital, into a hospital that was so rigid, and he was looked down upon, and he was one of the first to talk about people by their first names, not by their diagnosis. I remember when I used to work in the nightclubs and I used to sling beer, and we talk about, oh, you know the guy that drinks Ryan Coke with no ice? Oh yeah, I know him. Well, he was Ryan Coke no ice. He didn't have a name. And so we want to make sure that we know who these people are, and we want to integrate all the parts. So our medical systems have realized that grief and loss and fear and, purpose and meaning all take part in healing the body. They can change your heart. They can give you a new heart. But if you are feeling like crap and you're not emotionally supported or you're not spiritually supported, that new heart's not going to do you much good if you've got no purpose and meaning in your life. So aging well has to come from deep within. Pull up your boots and your bootstraps and say, I'm going to age well by holistically loving my whole energetic being. I always tell myself that God created me perfectly imperfect. Yes. The best me I need. Perfect. I love it. Shazy, I love it. So true. It's a great way to see it. Zola, I'm glad that you posted that up for sure. Thank you. So let's move on here. Evolution of consciousness. We are in a huge shift right now. I don't know if you're feeling it, if you wondered what it is, but we are moving into the next, and lots and lots and lots of really intelligent, smart people talking about this evolution of consciousness, because we're beginning to realize that we are way deeper than we've ever realized before. So humankind is moving into this next shift. We've got the earth changing, we've got climate change, we've got all these things happening, and it's an evolution of consciousness. And it's called a God consciousness, not because we want God as in the white man with the beard and everything in the sky, but God being the creative divine source of everything that there is. So there's an evolution of consciousness that's coming from within humankind, of where we're all starting to feel this energetic shift. So what if you could embrace your aging process by being more aware and focused? And I think that's what we've talked about here. That's what we definitely have talked about here. What if you could allow yourself to age with grace and purpose? We are such a society of anti-aging. Like, heaven forbid, we always are saying, oh, doesn't so-and-so look so good? She looks really young, or he looks really young. Or, so it's this epidemic that looking older is somehow less than. So let's age with grace and with purpose. Take pride in the fact that as we age, we gain wisdom. We're smart. We have smarts that the younger people don't have. And unless they see the lines in our face, the gray in our hair, they're not going to know we have all this wisdom. Elders are to be revered and loved. What if you were a leader in aging well and being a beacon for others? What if all of a sudden someone was to say to you, wow, you look so great. What's your secret? And you say, I've just decided to age well. I'm doing it holistically and I'm integrating all my parts and I'm paying attention to the 4 domains of my health so that I can pull them all together and make my life as good as I can possibly make it. So some final thoughts. Aging well and with purpose is heightened in today's society and culture. Knowing about the 4 domains of health will assist you in doing better because you know better. Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. When you know better, you do better. So I want you all to take that to heart tonight. So this is my information. I do have my book, and Sequoia said it's arriving at the library. She's ordered a copy. I'm so excited. And I do have my book. It's called In Stillness. It's just ponderings and short stories that I've written over the last 2 to 3 years. And I have that. And then I'm always willing to hear from you. If you have questions, if you want to email me, you can text me, you can phone me. I'm happy to chat anytime. I'm a spiritual care provider. That's what I do. I love caring for the spirit. And how I do that is by sharing my story, who I am. So we have about 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. So if you want to post anything up or talk, or if you feel like you'd like to unmute and speak, I'm sure Sequoia's okay with that. You're welcome to. I'm going to leave my information up so that everybody can see it. But I'm still here, so I'm just going to finally close my mouth because I tend to talk on, and I want to give you time now if you feel like talking.
We have a couple of comments here. Catherine says, I feel a lot of fear regarding what is happening these days. I'm feeling a lot of ecological grief over the huge degradation of the earth caused by humans. And Kruti says, speaking of energy and intuition, I mostly feel that something great and positive is coming my way, but I don't see anything changing in my life. And I wonder if if what I'm feeling is even true.
Thank you, Pauline. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that, oops, I just backed my thing up. Sorry, I just put my fingers over. I don't know what happened there. I'm going to go back to my, oh, I'm going the wrong way. That's why. Hold on. I'm going to put my information back up. Sorry. There we go. I touched my mouse. I'm glad you found it enlightening. Thank you, Tina. I'm lovely points to embrace myself and not of what others think of me or what I should do. I wanted to just go back to that one. I feel a lot of fear regarding what is happening these days. I'm feeling a lot of eco grief. We all are. Catherine, I'm with you there. It scares the daylights out of me. I have 4 small grandsons, step grandson and 3 biological grandsons, and I have twins. My daughter-in-law is expecting twins anytime, first part of December. And it scares the heck out of me because I think, what is the world going to be like when these boys are young men? And so I agree. And what is our earth coming to? How are we going to turn this around? How I help people, or how I like to help, is how can I make a difference? And I just make sure that I'm doing the best I can. The other thing is I try to stay away from TV, try and stay away from news, because I want to know what's going on in the world. However, I don't want to be saturated in it because it is fear mongering. That's what they want. They want to keep us afraid so that we feel paralyzed. So when we get out into the earth, like when we are actively aging well with purpose, we turn off the TV and we go and walk in the park. And we look at those trees and we think those trees have been here for 25 years, 30 years. Go to a bush somewhere and think about this bush has been present for 100 years. Go to a gravesite where there's gravestones. See those stones where you can still read the writing after 150 years. My great-great-great-grandfather is in a cemetery. I can still read the stone. So 150 years ago, 1853, whatever, he was buried there with this stone. I can read it. I know it's there. So I have faith that Mother Earth is going to give us some ways that we can do it if we're not paralyzed with fear. So, Catherine, work hard at letting go of the fear mongering and what's going on, and do small things in your own world that can give you feelings of appreciation and of ecological ways that you're doing stuff. And energy and intuition. Kruti, I agree with you. And what happens with this sometimes is that we don't see anything changing in your life because it hasn't changed yet. You're feeling it's coming, but it hasn't changed yet, so you can't see it because it hasn't changed yet. I just had a big conversation with my mentor last week, and I said, she always has this visualization of like a funnel, and you have all these balls in the funnel, and it's like an air shooting up through the funnel and all the balls like a bingo machine, and all of a sudden one pops down. And then another one pops down, and they kind of fall into place. But until they do, it's chaos. And the Buddhist tradition is built on chaos. As soon as we think we've got concreteness is when the great spirit, the great energy whips the rug out from underneath us to remind us that we're not in charge. We are simply doing what we need to do, but everything is chaos. If you're a Christian or a Jewish, you read the Hebrew scriptures that God created the earth out of the chaos. God created light and darkness out of the chaos. So when we look at our lives, we've got to have chaos in order to make sense. So I don't know if that helps you, Kruti, but just it's coming your way. So don't expect to see it if it's still coming. All right, what else have we got here? Yeah, pandemic. Okay, sorry, I just want to go back. The pandemic for me has been a paradigm shift at supersonic speed. Darlene, you are so right. I'm glad you enjoyed the information, Zoila. I'm sorry if I'm butchering people's names. We need to focus on what we can do to make the world a better place, and if we can influence people, wonderful. Yep, in a positive way. That's aging well with purpose. Good for you. That's great, Shaziz. Rajita says, I can relate to the eco grief. I stopped eating meat and limit my driving, and it bothers me that people don't care and don't believe they are contributing to the earth's degradation. I know it's so hard to watch people who are in denial, eh? So hard. I also am completely plant-based now, and so I choose not to contribute to the industries that are using up our planet. And so again, I just have to do what I can do. Thank you, Darlene. I love that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Kruti. Thank you, Camilla. And we will do more. So it is now 8 o'clock. We'll be able to get a copy of this recording to view it. Yes, Sakura said it will be going up. Eventually, it might take a few weeks because they have to, of course, send it through to their editors and they do what they need to do with it. But they will eventually be posting it onto the library resources. So that's great. And so I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming and being here tonight and spending an hour with Sequoia and and we will do more. And so if I don't see you all before, I hope you have a lovely holiday season as we head down into a stressful time. We were talking earlier that we may do something in December around dealing with stress around the holiday time and how to enjoy it and not be carried away with all the materialism. So if you're interested in that, let Sequoia know and she'll keep you on the list. So I'm going to be quiet now so that those who wish to leave are welcome to go. And like I said, you're welcome to contact me anytime.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. It's been wonderful, and it's been so great to see so much participation, so many great comments. I don't know if I'll be allowed, or if we'll be allowed to do the session in December, but hopefully we can. And I do have to go and relieve my colleagues now in the library, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. Thank you again, Cynthia, and I really appreciate this great presentation, and hope we can do another one soon.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.